About censorship. Okay, we kind of talked about that last week, remember? So, and the reason we're talking about this is because there's a lot of it that happens in this chapter. Ancient censorship. Let's look at a couple of examples. We just read in 51 and 52, basically, instead of replying correctly to Nicodemus, the religious leaders kind of maybe not so much threaten him, but use words that they're trying to silence him, trying to get him just to follow their side. And then if you look back, we read it in verses 46 and 47, when the officers come back, the Pharisees don't respond rightly to them either. They just accuse them, man, you're deceived too. But then look at verse 13. Everyone go back to verse 13. This is the key verse. Okay, if you read 10 through 12, you see, there's this kind of division in Jerusalem. There's people saying Jesus is good, other people saying no, he's a deceiver, and so everyone has these different opinions about Jesus. But verse 13 it says, however, no one spoke openly about Jesus. Why? For fear of the Jews. And the Jews here is speaking specifically of the religious leaders, because obviously it's all these Jews are in Jerusalem, and some of them think he's good, some think he's bad. But there's censorship that goes on, and really you kind of see this throughout the gospel accounts, right? There's a lot of censorship that happens from the religious leaders toward Jesus and his followers. And then, how many of you guys ever read the book of Acts? That happens a ton in the book of Acts. When the disciples are going around preaching the resurrection of Jesus, the religious leaders threaten them, they imprison them, they try to take away their freedom of speech, and they even murdered some of them, and even chased them around all over the known world at the time, trying to silence them. So what is censorship? How would you guys define censorship in your own words? Wyatt, how would you define censorship? Okay, James, help him out.
Censorship?
Yeah.
I don't even know what it means.
Okay. Well, hey, you're about to learn. Zach.
Basically not letting somebody speak and taking their right to speak because they don't like the way they're proving their point or it's contradicting their point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, James, let's leave that on the ground. Thanks. Yeah.
Picking and choosing what people hear.
Mm-hmm.
So like people don't hear something you don't like.
Right. Exactly. Good.
Locking out other people's views.
Mm-hmm. Locking out other people's views. Yeah. So does that make more sense now? Censorship is silencing and even at times threatening people who disagree with you. Okay. Censorship is where you try to suppress other people's spoken or written opinions or views on something to try to keep it silent so that only one side or one viewpoint is publicly known. Does that make sense? Yes? No? James, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the Pharisees' attitude, were they promoters of free speech? No way. Okay. Basically, their attitude was, we're going to silence you if you disagree with us, okay? And people were afraid to speak openly about their opinions, their beliefs about Jesus, because of the threats from the religious leaders, okay? So question, do we have a lot of censorship today? For sure, right? All over the world, really. For example, a lot of Muslim countries in the Middle East, there's a lot of censorship, okay? Not all of them, but the good majority of predominantly Muslim countries, like I'll give you some examples, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, and others, you don't have the freedom to just criticize the government leaders. If you do, that could lead to imprisonment, to being fined, to even torture and death. I mean, think about that. Is that freedom of speech? No. Okay? If you speak about Jesus, if you speak against the Quran or against Muhammad, in some of those countries, they will take you out into the public square and cut your head off. publicly. Like, no joke, that happens. If you dishonor, or what they call dishonoring the Quran, okay? If you speak about the gospel and claim to be a Christian, and that Jesus is the only way to salvation, they'll kill you in some of those countries, okay? In a country like Russia, okay, tell me if you think this is freedom of speech or censorship. Thousands of Russians have actually been arrested, fined, and some even beaten and tortured for publicly protesting, peacefully, but protesting the Russia-Ukraine war. Like, there's like totally solid evidence and proof that thousands of Russians in Russia have been arrested, some of them even beaten and tortured for protesting the Russia-Ukraine war. Is that freedom of speech? No way. China has the same thing, a lot of censorship, and if you speak out against this or that, you may never be heard from again, okay? So how about, but like, okay, what about the West, though? The Western world where like freedom of speech rules, right? Well, the UK, United Kingdom, okay? England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, is there freedom of speech there? Well, it's kind of interesting, because I was going to say to a degree, but if it's only to a degree, is it really freedom of speech? You're free to say this or that, but not if we don't like this. Let me give you some examples of how the UK has been losing their freedom of speech. And again, the UK, guys, like England is the nation that pretty much invented freedom of speech hundreds of years ago. It was some Christians and then others who were not Christians. Hey, guys, stop. That basically invented the whole idea of freedom of speech, and yet today, hundreds of years later, like, they're getting rid of it. So here's some examples for you. There's actually people who are being arrested frequently. You know why? Because they're hurting other people's feelings with their posts on social media. You guys know that? Like, that happens in England.
They get arrested.
They actually get arrested because they're writing things that are hurting people's feelings, or that are emotionally hurtful to people. Those are some of the words that have actually been used. You're using inflammatory language, and it's emotionally damaging to people. So they actually arrest them for it. Like, this is insane. So here's some examples for you. A lady, 64-year-old woman, Dr. Livy Bolt. Actually, if you want to put this, it's kind of hard to see, but this is the picture of the woman. And so let me kind of tell you her story a little bit. She stood on a public street, okay? Public space outside of an abortion clinic in Bournemouth, England. And she simply just had a sign that said this: "Here to talk if you want." That was it. She wasn't preaching the gospel. I don't know that she's even a Christian. I don't think she is. But literally all it said was, "Here to talk if you want." She wasn't saying abortion is good or evil, just here to talk if you want. She had a lot of really positive interactions. There were many students that came and talked to her and kind of shared with her. There were a lot of parents that came and talked to her, and other people about their lives and whatnot. But some city officials, they viewed this as violating what they have a law in England called the buffer zone. So the buffer zone is an area, a zone, that's part of a law that basically takes the freedom of speech away from the citizens. You are not allowed to stand within 150 meters. Okay, that's like a football field and a half. So if you see how long a football field is, it's pretty long, right? Imagine 1.5 football fields long. You're not allowed to stand within 150 meters of an abortion clinic and express approval or disapproval of abortion in any way. So think about that. If you're a business right next to an abortion clinic, you can't even be inside of your business and express any kind of approval or disapproval of abortion, because you're violating the buffer zone law. So basically what happened is she was charged in March of 2023, so just about 2 years ago, and later fined 20,000 British pounds, which is even more than $20,000, I think, in our currency, even though not a single person complained. Not a single person claimed that she was harassing them. No negative interactions. And she wasn't even like, would you guys call this a controversial sign? I'm here to talk if you want. That was it. And yet she was fined thousands and thousands of dollars. Okay? Yeah.
It says that was in 2014 with the comments, so has it gotten worse or are people starting to realize it and
Yeah.
doing something?
Really good question. So this is back from 2014. This is unrelated to here. I just wanted to have this up here for you guys. But this is the police in Scotland. They posted this and said, yeah, please be aware that we will continue to monitor comments on social media and any offensive comments will be investigated. Yeah.
So if she was just holding that sign and not saying anything, how could they claim that it had anything to do with the abortion clinic?
Great question. Really good question. So they come and question her. I can't remember if it's with her or someone else, but you can YouTube and find some of these videos of like the actual interactions. And the police will go and kind of interrogate or investigate and start asking, hey, why are you here? What do you mean by this sign? You know, and so on and so forth. But it gets worse. So get this, but just one sec. So I want you to think. Let's read this again. Please be aware that we will continue to monitor comments on social media and any offensive comments will be investigated. Look at that last line. Any offensive comments will be investigated. What's a critical thinking question you can ask about that part of the statement?
What's
If
considered
I
offensive?
send an offensive comment in America, can they still arrest me?
Well, not if you're in America.
But like
Exactly.
if you comment on the
So
post
if you
and you say
change-
something offensive,
Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying, yeah. But yeah, Jordan, what was your question?
what's considered offensive?
Yeah, guys, what qualifies as offensive? Is it all just up to your opinions?
No, there's
Like, if you're in Scotland and a Muslim says, Muhammad was the greatest prophet who ever lived, I could say, well, that's offensive. But are they going to actually be investigated? No. But if I say Jesus is the greatest prophet who ever existed, and someone says that's offensive, you know what will happen? There's a really good chance I will be investigated. Okay? If you say something, here's an example of what they would call, well, that's offensive language. If I say there's only two genders because God created only two, you will be investigated, and people have been. Okay? If I say abortion is wrong, morally wrong, you will be investigated for that. Okay? And some people have been fined and even arrested for saying things like that. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if like this is valid, but like what if there's like a homeless person with a homeless sign? Like is that offensive to someone who like, oh, you're like in my way, or like and then they get charged like a $20,000 fine?
Well, and see, that's exactly the question. What qualifies as offensive? Anyone can take offense to anything if they want to, right? But is that how freedom of speech works? That if I'm offended because of this person's remarks, therefore they should be investigated? Here's another example. Isabel Von Spruce. This is in England, Birmingham, England. In November 2022, so just a few years ago, she was arrested. Listen to this. This is crazy, guys. She was arrested near an abortion clinic, not even right outside of it, near an abortion clinic in Birmingham, England, for simply all she was doing was praying silently in her head. She did not even say any words out loud. She was praying in her head, and they arrested her for it. Okay? The police department then later admitted that they had violated her rights, and they paid her a small sum, but, you know, like totally inappropriate. And she's not the only one. Listen to this one. Adam Smith Connor, he's a former veteran, former military in the UK. In October 2024, so guys, this is what, like, while our Germany team was in Germany last year in October, this happened. Okay, so this isn't even a whole year ago. In October 2024, he was arrested and fined over 9,000 British pounds, which is, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars, for praying silently in his head, not even out loud, 50 meters, which is like 150 feet-ish, from an abortion clinic outside of, or in Bournemouth, England. So he was over 150 feet away from an abortion clinic. He wasn't right outside of it, and he was praying silently in his head, and he got arrested for that. Think about that.
How did they know they were praying?
So you can find actually some of these videos on YouTube, and they ask him, you know, like, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm just praying in my head. I'm not even praying out loud. And they, well, what are you praying for? And I think it was this specific guy. I think it was Adam Smith Connor, who he said he was praying for. So he and his wife or girlfriend in the past had an abortion. So he said that he was praying for his own baby that they aborted, and they arrested him for it. Like, wasn't even praying out loud, did not say a single word out loud, just praying in his own mind and heart, and they arrested him for it. Yeah.
Did they arrest him because it was offensive, or was there like...
Because they have this law, the buffer zone law, that you can't be within a certain area and approve of or disapprove or do any, like, you can't say anything about abortion there, which is, isn't that strange? Is that freedom of speech? No, definitely not. Okay? Here's another example. Rose Daughtery. She is a 74-year-old British woman who was arrested just a couple months ago. She was arrested February 19th, 2025, for standing outside an abortion clinic in Glasgow, Scotland, and silently holding a sign that said, "Coercion is a crime. Here to talk only if you want." That was it. That was what her sign said, and she was arrested for it. Silently, just holding that sign. Think of some of the signs people hold in out on the street or in protests in America that are very inflammatory. F this person, or this person's a Nazi, or whatever else. And you know what? Like, is that freedom of speech if they're not arrested? Yeah. They're idiots. They're stupid. But that's one of the amazing things, guys, about being American. You have the right to be a moron and stand out on the street with a sign that's stupid and that has lies on it, and people can laugh at you and disagree with you or agree with you. That's what freedom of speech is. But to hold a sign just simply saying coercion is a crime, not specifying what she's talking about, but just coercion is a crime, here to talk only if you want, to be arrested for that. That's insane. Is that freedom of speech? No way.
What's coercion?
To coerce someone is to kind of like manipulate them into something. To kind of like forcefully sort of manipulate them into something. Another person, Jamila Abdi, she's a young black Muslim student who was criminally charged in July 2024 for calling Alexander Isak. He's an amazing professional soccer player on the team Newcastle. Okay, what? Yeah, he's really good. So she called him an offensive word, the N-word. Okay, I think it was on a Twitter post, and she was also criminally charged for that. And there's a whole debate that she kind of gives of, well, because we're both black, we should be able to say that to each other. I disagree with that. I think no one should call anyone offensive names, no matter, and it should have nothing to do with your race. You know, like, you shouldn't use unkind language to anyone, no matter the context. And yet, she was criminally charged. You have a lady named Lucy Connolly. She's a 41-year-old woman. She was arrested, charged, and convicted in October 2024 for going on X, I guess, Twitter, and expressing support for deporting illegal immigrants in the UK. Okay, she was sentenced, listen to this, okay, I'm going to say this again. Okay, she went on X and she supported, like, you know how the US has been doing this. She supported deporting illegal immigrants, okay, not people who are there legally, but came into the UK illegally. She expressed support for deporting them because they broke the laws. And she was arrested and sentenced to, listen to this, 31 months in prison. Simply for saying that on social media. 31 months in prison. So, is that freedom of speech?
No.
So I want you guys to think about it. Doesn't happen in the US though, right? Has censorship happened in the US in the last several years?
Yes.
For sure. Can you guys think of any ways?
Yeah.
Tell me some ways you can think of.
I've seen a couple clips that when people start talking about Jesus on the news, they get like cut off or the signal goes out.
Mm-hmm. Conveniently, right? Yeah, Amanda.
Trump versus Biden.
Okay, what do you mean?
Okay, so when Biden was still like in his presidency, everyone was talking about how like Trump was gonna get like arrested because he was doing X amount of things that were wrong, but no one talked about how like people were behind Joe Biden, like I guess like doing things and trying.
Yeah, there was hypocrisy, right? A double standard. Yeah.
Like on some like social media platforms, a lot of videos get taken down as you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And why do they get taken down?
Because they're like not like supposed to be watched. It's like
Yeah, some people don't like it, right? Yeah, it doesn't go with certain people's agenda, right? And so if you oppose their view, you get censored, right? And that's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, great point. Josh.
When a lot of stuff was coming about the fake votes coming in, and there was these reporters talking about it, and they had them like taken out.
Yeah, for sure. Eric?
There's this one guy that was driving through our neighborhood, and he's probably driving through every neighborhood because after that we saw him drive past the main road into another neighborhood, and he said he had a Tesla, and it had a sign that said Elon Musk, and then a red arrow going right there, like the no sign, and my friend Tristan, his dad, was like, why do you get a Tesla then?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? David?
I mean, just to play devil's advocate, just to show that it's not always on one side of the aisle, it's also the other. The class president of MIT who gave a speech the day before the commencement talking about who's pro-Palestine and pro-Palestinian, and she was talking about how MIT has research ties with the Israeli military.
Guys.
And she was banned from their actual commencement ceremony on Friday from giving a speech because of those ideals.
Yeah. Yeah. One more.
Christianity can't really be talked about in public schools, especially if their teachers feel like lose your job, but like, I'm pretty sure other religions will come.
Yeah, I had a student when I was youth pastoring in San Diego. I had a student who she was sent to the principal's office at her public school for simply having her Bible on the lunch table at lunch, reading her Bible. She didn't say anything. She wasn't promoting anything. She wasn't talking. All she was doing was reading her Bible at lunch, and she got sent to the principal's office for it and in trouble. She was told she couldn't have her Bible. She actually got in trouble another time for simply having her Bible in her backpack with her backpack closed. Okay? But yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy. So we'll finish with this. Why is it a bad thing when a nation or a society or a people destroy freedom of speech? Why is that a bad thing?
Because then you can't, like, it takes away most of your rights. And not only that, you can't, like, promote anything, the government will just continue to take over.
Exactly. Someone's gonna control it, right? Exactly.
Because there's a lot of corrupt and like not good leaders who just censor what they don't like and what they do like, and so then like abortion, LGBTQ, all those things are gonna like take over, and then Christianity and like what is morally right is all gonna be belittled because there's no freedom of speech.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if it's only like, if most people like can't speak their opinion, then everything's gonna be like really one-sided, and like people who have these opinions are not gonna be like happy that they can't talk on it, and like it's gonna influence a lot when it should be like you should be able to hear both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if one side's wrong, they should still have the freedom to express their opinions, right, and their views.
It would be really easy to brainwash people.
Huh?
It would be really easy to brainwash people.
Yeah, do you guys hear that? It would be really easy to brainwash people, and all you got to do, guys, is look around the world. And you guys, this is why it's so important for you to pay attention in history class and learn history, because you guys know the saying, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And all you have to do is look back in history, and you could see this in Nazi Germany, you can see this in Stalinist Russia, you can see this in so many countries. You can see it today, where you look when the government censors people and only allows people that agree with them to post things that agree with them. That's so dangerous for a society. You get rid of one of the most fundamental rights that God created humans to have. And it totally brainwashes people, it deceives people, and it enslaves people. Yeah.
I was going to say, and it goes perfectly with what Jordan said, is that it also doesn't help facilitate teaching people critical thinking, because you can really only learn how to discern ideas if you're presented with a variety of them to like actually think about and compare, versus like if you go to a school in a country where it's all just like one idea being promoted, like you're not gonna think twice, you're gonna accept it. You won't learn how to actually think through those things.
Right. Guys, here's the reality. A lot of political and or religious speech and opinions, they're going to offend people, right? They're either going to offend someone or a lot of people, and that's just the reality. The big question that we got to ask, okay, well then who gets to decide where you draw the line, right? Who gets to decide where the line is drawn of you can or cannot say X, Y, or Z? And that's the really important thing to think about it. Like, who gets to decide what we can and cannot say? This is one of the reasons, guys, that critical thinking is so important and freedom of speech. Okay, so we're gonna close. There's a whole lot more that we could say on that and discuss, but we're gonna close, and we're gonna close with a song or two. So if Court, could you finish this video, and you guys can. Aaliyah, where's Aaliyah? Is she here?
Yes.
Oh.